Hello, good evening and welcome to Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7, coming to you live from our studio here at Adesawe Kanda in Accra. Coming up this evening, Corruption Watch Ghana uncovers flagrant violation of right to information law by key state institutions, including Parliament, the judiciary, the Ghana Police Service, and several others, causing the taxpayer millions of Ghana cedis in fines. We'll give you a breakdown of which institutions are flouting these laws and how much they've been fined to pay. Later in the bulletin, government projects a bumper harvest this year and says measures are being put in place to purchase and manage excess foodstuff from farmers. Meanwhile, with recent reports of dangerous levels of toxins in soil and food crops due to illegal mining, the Agric Minister is saying that government is taking measures to mitigate the impact. We'll update you on that as well as the bulletin rolls on. And later, the Ghana Education Service acts swiftly to remove the KNUST Senior High School Assistant Headmaster after a viral video shows him in a compromising position with a female student. Details of all of these and more, plus your comments, coming up in the next 1 hour. Do stay with us. My name is Martin Asiedu-Dartey. Let's bring you the news summaries now with Christabel.
Thank you very much, Martin. We're here again another Monday. And in our summaries tonight, the Ghana Education Service GES has dismissed the Assistant Headmaster Academics of KNUST Senior High School, Mr. Charles Akwesi Edu, after a viral video showed him in a compromising situation with a female student. In a statement issued on Monday, September 29, GES said its attention had been drawn to the video circulating on social media. The service said it views the matter with the utmost seriousness and has taken immediate steps with its commitment to safeguarding students. Also, the Foreign Minister of Cuba, Bruno Parilla, has reaffirmed the deep bonds of friendship and solidarity between Ghana and Cuba, recalling the historic ties that date back to the era of Kwame Nkrumah and Commander Fidel Castro. Minister Parilla expressed appreciation for President John Mahama's consistent support toward the removal of restrictions imposed on Cuba. He further underscored Cuba's commitment to deepen cooperation with Ghana, particularly in new areas of economic engagement, while advancing ongoing agreements in health and education. The Ghana Armed Forces GAF has announced that the 2025 enlistment and recruitment exercise is set to commence in the coming days across all 16 regional capitals of the country. In a press release issued on Monday, September 29, the GAF stated that this decentralized approach is aimed at offering equal opportunity to all eligible applicants regardless of location. And finally, Ghanaian DSTV subscribers are set to enjoy significantly improved service offerings following what the government describes as a major concession by MultiChoice Africa. Minister for Communication, Digital Technology and Innovations, Samuel Nate George, has announced that MultiChoice Africa has committed to an unprecedented increased value offer specifically for the Ghanaian market. And we have this on our website, 3news.com, and a whole lot more. Please do well to visit there. Over to you, Martin.
Thank you very much, Christabel. Let's settle for the details of our stories now. Corruption Watch Ghana has uncovered that several key institutions that are in the state are breaking the right to information law, and it's costing taxpayers millions of cedis. According to the latest Corruption Watch report, which was released today, more than 60 public and private institutions have been fined a total of 5.6 million Ghana cedis for refusing to release information requested by citizens. Some of the biggest offenders include the Ghana Police Service, which has already paid 450,000 cedis, and the Judicial Service, which owes over 100,000 Ghana cedis. We'll give you a further breakdown of who the other culprits are and how we can actually go about this, because it does not make sense that, for instance, you require information from a certain state institution. They do not give you the information for whatever reason, but when they are fined, they come back to the state, look for money from the public purse to pay for the fine, which means indirectly they can choose not to give any information, although there is a law that orders or ensures that they give information that citizens require or request from them. We'll delve deeper into that particular issue, which has become quite concerning. But let's go to another that is very important to everybody, including you listening to us right now. It has to do with food and what we consume to help us live. And government is taking quite some stringent measures in that regard to ensure that there is proper food and healthy ones for our consumption. And government is projecting a bumper harvest this year and says measures are being put in place to purchase and manage excess foodstuff from farmers. The Minister of Food and Agriculture, Eric Opoku, speaking on hot issues with Kamini earlier in the week, said that improved yields are expected to boost domestic supply and strengthen Ghana's agricultural base. Last week, government announced the release of funds to enable the National Buffer Stock Company purchase excess grains from farmers. This comes as farmers lament lack of buyers for their produce, as well as significant drop in farm gate prices. The minister says in addition to the buffer stock mopping up the glut, government is also working closely with processing plants to absorb excess produce and reduce waste. You're still live on 3FM 92.7. So as I indicated, we have a number of key topical conversations that we are monitoring for you. We would want to take a step back. You will hear from the minister about what exactly is being done to ensure that we have food safety in the country and quality food for that matter. But let's take a step back to our earlier story having to do with key state institutions, known ones for that matter, who are flouting simple right to information law, which requires that when people ask them for specific information, they are supposed to give it out. But a recent report released by the Corruption Watch Ghana indicate that when people do request information from the likes of the Ghana Police Service, the Judicial Service, they have all declined for a number of reasons. And they have actually been fined. So some of the biggest offenders include the Ghana Police Service, which has already paid 450,000 Ghana cedis for refusing to give information that was requested. Again, the Judicial Service also owes 100,000 Ghana cedis. The Commission on Human Rights and Administrative Justice, SHRAJ, is also to pay 30,000 Ghana cedis for refusing to release information. The Parliamentary Service, which is Ghana's parliament, the lawmakers themselves, are actually at fault, and they are to pay 53,000, actually have paid 53,000 Ghana cedis already, while SNIT has paid 200,000 Ghana cedis. The Attorney General's Department, we are told, owes about 50,000 Ghana cedis. The heaviest penalty was slapped on the Agricultural Development Bank, ADB Bank, paying 1.3 million Ghana cedis for defaulting to give information requested under law. The Ministry of Education followed closely with 260,000 Ghana cedis, while the Lands Commission has also paid 150,000 cedis. The Audit Service 60,000. The Public Procurement Authority is yet to pay 100,000 Ghana cedis that has been slapped on them. Corruption Watch says these fines were imposed by the Right to Information Commission after more than 70 rulings. The investigations show that even institutions that should champion transparency, like the courts, parliament, and the police, are refusing to comply with the RTI law. And in the end, it is the taxpayer that also ends up paying for these monies. So or when these violations occur. So what exactly is the way forward? Let's speak to Zachariah Musa Tanko, who is a lecturer and a private legal practitioner. Mr. Musa Tanko, good evening to you. Thank you for joining us on 3FM.
Good evening, and thank you for having me.
Well, what is your understanding of what's going on? There clearly is a law, and these are not laws broken by individuals, but state institutions, known ones like Parliament, the judiciary, the police, where people have requested information and have not got that information. After several rulings, they have now been fined to pay. What do you think, or from what we've heard from the report, is actually going on?
Well, just...
Hello, sir. Hello, Musa. Mr. Tango, can you hear me? We seem to have lost the line just when he agreed to speak to us. In fact, I asked my first question and he was about answering, and then the line seemed to have played a trick on us. But you listening to us right now, what are your thoughts on the fact that, and I'm sure many of you listening have tried requesting information from some state agencies or public institutions. Did you get the information? What was the process like? And or were you denied access to that information? And if so, what do you make? What was the next step that you took? Because this is quite concerning that we have laws that are expected to govern us. Even those that pass the law themselves are flouting it. Fortunately, we have Musa Tanko back joining us. Mr. Tanko, good evening. We lost you briefly. I was asking what your thoughts were on these infractions committed by some of these institutions.
Well, I'm disappointed. I'm also embarrassed. I think it's very embarrassing and disappointing, right? Embarrassing and disappointing because when you look at the institutions that we are talking about, these are institutions that are key in our governance architecture. We're talking about SHS, we are talking about the Judicial Service, we're talking about the Attorney General Department, we're talking about the Ghana Police, we're talking about the Audit Service, and we are talking about the Parliamentary Service. It couldn't be more bizarre than this. These are institutions that are supposed to be at the heart of our governance architecture, and they are refusing or failing to adhere to a basic constitutional requirement that has been backed by an act of Parliament. And what is this basic constitutional requirement? The right to access information. And it's a universal right now that is becoming more of a universal right where everybody has the right to access information, that is with a public institution or with a private institution that is providing a public service. And it's worrying because when you look at the money, the penalty that has been imposed on them, it is not the individuals who are going to pay for it. It is the same state institution that is going to pay for it. Taxpayers' money is going to be used to pay for something that is really needless, that is avoidable, because the information that is being requested, the framers of the law had thought about instances where there are some information that when it is provided may hurt the country, may hurt the nation, either because of national security or other issues. And in those instances, they have made those information exempt. So if the information has not been exempted by the law, you have no basis not to provide that information. Because at the end of the day, you, the individual who is the custodian of that information, or the institution that is the custodian of information, what makes you think that you have the right to access that information, but the other members of the public don't have the right to access that information when we are all equal by the law? You just happen to be entrusted with the information. And therefore, at any time, if people want to access the information, the law says within 14 days, grant them the information. If you do not grant them the information within the 14 days, they will go to the head of the institution and request for the information. And if he or she refuses to give the information within 15 days, then they can appeal to the Right to Information Commission. And that's what people have done. They've gone to the Right to Information Commission, and the Right to Information Commission don't just jump into issuing penalties. They give you the opportunity to release the information, and they don't do it. So for me, two things come to mind. One, some of those institutions who are caught up in this are either nonchalant, in other words, they don't care. So what? We will release it, so what? Thinking is the old ways of doing things. And there's another school, there's another group who they know they have to release the information, but they are not too sure what you want to do with the information that you are requesting for. In other words, because the right to information law says you, the requester of the information, you are not under any obligation to indicate or to state why you need the information. So because they are not too sure what they need the information from, and sometimes some of the information are information that may sound a little bit controversial to release or may indict them or embarrass them, they prefer to ignore you.
Right.
Hoping that you will move away.
Right.
Or some of them even prefer to pay the fine or penalty than to release that information. And that is where it is worrying. That's why I have been arguing that we now have to start going after the individuals whose recklessness or negligence leads to the penalty so that they will be surcharged, so that the state doesn't have to pay for an individual's negligence.
So you are proposing, for instance, that instead of, for instance, an institution paying, the head of that institution be made to pay, or whoever is refusing the release of the information be made to pay. You think that is one way we can approach and make sure that the law bites?
Yeah, so that you hurt them where it matters most. Because if the individual knows very well that, listen, if I don't release this information and I have no basis not to release that information and I am fined or I'm given a penalty, I will pay from my pocket, he would want to release the information. And if he attempts to release the information and somebody else puts impediments in his or her way, he would be able to explain when he is asked to pay for that money. He says, I did my best, I was actually frustrated. And then the burden would shift onto the person who actually tried to frustrate him. Until we start doing these things and people start feeling the heat. I mean, it's a vicious cycle. People don't have any deterrent. There's nothing that deters them from behaving the way they're behaving. I think the arrogance has to stop, and institutions should learn to obey the law and act within the ambit of the law.
There are those who are raising concerns about probably the sensitivity of some of the information being requested. Would you, for instance, suggest that there should be some clarity as to what kind of information can be given out? And if you look at the demographics of the worst offenders, we are told, for instance, that the Agricultural Development Bank was slapped with 1.3 million Ghana cedis. And beyond that, we have the SNIT, for instance, paying 200,000 or having been charged with 200,000. The Ghana Police Service, about 450,000. These institutions actually handle somewhat information that could be classified as sensitive. Do you think the law gives clarity on what can be given out and what cannot, and then that will be justified before the commission to say that we didn't give out this information because of A, B, and C, and for that reason, maybe that penalty is suspended or is not imposed?
So, see, that would be a very ludicrous proposal or proposition, because, like I told you earlier on, or I suggested earlier on, the Right to Information Act, right, at 989, has stipulated exempt information. There are informations that are exempted, and those informations are exempted, and they are designed to protect sensitive areas critical to national interest, privacy, legal processes, and all those things. And if you take our exemption regime, for instance, it's so wide that sometimes it even defeats the very purpose of the Right to Information Act. But that's what we have for now. But if you look at the international standard or the best practice, our exemptions are so broad that some people are saying that we need to look at it again. But there are a lot of exemptions. Some of the exemptions even include information for the president or vice president, information for cabinet, information that has to do with law enforcement and public safety, international relations, state security, information on tax information, internal workings of organizations. So my point is that the law has anticipated and contemplated information that should not be given. But in these instances, right, where the penalty has been given, one, some of them didn't even bother to respond. They didn't even bother to respond at all. Meanwhile, the law says if you request for information and you do not hear from the people, after the timeline, consider that they have denied you the information. So the person would go through the next line of action. So my point is that the law has taken into account those instances. So if the law says give that information, then the information that is being requested is not considered to be information that would be harmful to the state if it is delivered. Do you get my point?
I do.
So that argument doesn't hold at all. The law has made provisions for that. Although even that provisions, we think that is too widespread. But that is what we have for now, so let's stay with that. But I'm saying that what is happening at the moment is because people just hold on to that old way of doing things. We have information. We are keeping it in secrecy. Now, this is the interesting thing about the right to information law. It has come to override, so you cannot hide behind your oath of secrecy and deny somebody information that is not exempt. The Right to Information Act has come to override the oath of secrecy. So your only justification for not releasing information is for you to quote in a portion of the act that information that the person is requesting for is exempt. In the absence of that, you have no basis not to release that information.
Right. I'm sure that in the coming days we'll try and get further perspectives to this. Thank you so much for speaking to us and sharing your thoughts on this.
I'm grateful. Thank you for having me.
Right. You had a lecturer and private legal practitioner, Zachariah Musa Tanko, who has been vehemently supporting the law as it stands and reiterating the fact that we probably should make it a bit more biting so that instead of a whole institution like a bank denying information or the Ghana Police Service denying access to information, the head or the individual in charge of releasing that information be made to pay or face the penalty instead of saying the entirety of the institution pay for it. Because where are they going to get the money to pay in the first place? They are going to come back to the state coffers to take money and pay to the Right to Information Commission, which then becomes a circle that we are just running in. But people do need information, especially we journalists, so that we can keep duty bearers on their toes and keep you updated as and when it becomes necessary. This is still 3FM 92.7. We are live on Facebook and on YouTube. We are streaming this bulletin, and you can also be part of the show. Let's hear what you make of the many stories we have for you this evening. We'll be happy to read your comments to the rest of the world. Let's go back to the other all-important subject of food safety, food security, and the quality of content that we have on our plates at home. And Christabel will give us the details.
Yes, government is projecting a bumper harvest this year and says measures are being put in place to purchase and manage excess foodstuff from farmers. Minister of Food and Agriculture, Eric Opoku, speaking on hot issues with Kemini Amano, said improved yields are expected to boost domestic supply and strengthen Ghana's agricultural base. Last week, government announced the release of funds to enable the National Buffer Stock Company purchase excess grains from farmers. This comes as farmers lament lack of buyers for their produce, as well as significant drop in farm gate prices. The minister says in addition to the buffer stock mopping up the guts, government is also working closely with processing plants to absorb excess produce and reduce waste.
To drive Ghana towards food sufficiency. And I can tell you that where we are now, we are heading towards the goal. Within the past months, we have implemented a lot of policies. Now you hear in the news that our farmers are crying. They have produced so much, they are not getting market. Are you not hearing it?
Indeed.
Some are even complaining that prices are collapsing so low that they are unable to recoup their investment that they made in the farming activity. It is an indication that the investment we made in the production of food is yielding the results. I'm surprised that you are still talking about the old situation.
So let me put it into context, because when you look at the inflation figures, the food group still constitutes a very large, because the national average is about 11, but food inflation alone is 14 to 15%, right?
So we are looking at a multi-sectorial approach to dealing with the food inflation situation. One, if you produce in abundance, certainly it will force prices downwards. If you produce in excess of our demand, price will come down, but the farmer will suffer. So we have resourced the National Food Buffer Store. We have given them initial amount of 100 million Ghana cedis. They will step into the market from next week and buy the excess maize and then the excess rice.
So we have excess maize and excess rice in the system now.
That's why they are crying. The farmers are crying.
On imports, Mr. Poku admitted that Ghana still relies heavily on rice imports, but he was confident that increased local production this year will help reduce the gap and stabilize food supplies nationwide.
And I must say that I'm grateful to the Food and Agricultural Organization for supporting Ghana to procure a modern soil testing equipment and also supporting us to rehabilitate the Kumasi Soil Laboratory. Now we are in the position to test our soils across our districts. The machine will be testing the soils. The soil scientists will go to the various districts, take sample of the soils for testing to enable us know the conditions of the soil, the nutrients that are available, which ones are lacking, and then we put in place mechanisms to, treat that.
You just heard there Mr. Eric Opoku. He's the Minister of Food and Agriculture. Martin?
Right, let's go to the phone lines now. We've been joined by Edward Karewe, who is the Director and the Policy and Advocacy Legal Entrepreneurship Support Hub, LESS Hub. Mr. Karewe, good evening. Thank you for joining us on 3FM.
Yeah, good evening, sir.
I'm sure that having followed what the minister said, and I mean, you clearly are an individual who's played very significant roles in Ghana's food supply chain. So the concerns being raised by the minister or being addressed by the minister are things that are not entirely new to you. Issues of food glut, and then it affects farmers, farm gate prices drop, etc. I mean, put the last 5 to 10 years or the last decade in perspective for us. Do you think we have taken the right steps in ensuring that there is enough food in the system and farmers are getting due for their work that they put in?
Well, once again, let me say good evening to all of you and to those who are listening to us. I think that there has been one major challenge with Ghana's management of the economy. You would also appreciate that agriculture is part of the entire economy, and then everything has to work together. The challenge that we normally have is to be able to look at what really is produced within, and then how much food can be brought from outside, that is through import. So for that matter, we need a number of cluster of policies. So the policies that government has put in place, and also complemented by the good weather and the good rains, we are going to have an increased output in our agricultural production this time. But the point we also have to ask is, what are our import policies? Have our import policies taken account of the fact that we are increasing our food stock by our production? And also because government has managed the economy well by way of strengthening the city, it is now cheaper to import, because your imports are now cheaper. So what then happens is that those who are not in agriculture and those who are just commercial business people and who are importing, they are going to import more of food stuff into the country, and that will now come to meet the increased production of food in the country, and it will create this type of glut. Apart from that, there's so much smuggling of food into this country as well. If you take Togo is a free port, foodstuffs coming through their ports because of the low taxes is far cheaper than that of Ghana. And then it goes up to the northern part of the country and gets into the country again. We also have smuggling of goods, of foodstuffs from Cote d'Ivoire in the EA sector line and then it gets into the country. So all this outside flow of foodstuff goes a long way to exacerbate the problem of farmers here. So it is true that food stock will go up given the good weather and the good policies, and then it will not have actually been a disadvantage to the farmers. But it's also because I don't know what government has done in terms of constraining imports into the country so that they do not come and then destroy the local market for local producers. If government is not able to do that, certainly the effect on domestic producers will be that they will be, it will be very difficult for them to recover their costs, and that can be a disincentive going into the next season of farming.
Now, the bit about farmers, of which you also, a happy and a proud one, comes up every now and then. They are concerned that they break their backs, try to ensure that we have food at home, but then they are not getting enough for it. Government has responded, for instance, by saying that we'll buy off every produce at the farm gate. Do you think this could be demotivating for farmers where, indirectly in the next few years, a lot more people who are being incentivized to go into farming would say, we are seeing what's happening to the everyday Ghanaian farmer, and that may, cause them to change their minds not to want to go into this very important bit of humanity, which is farming?
You see, the intervening measures, like a buffer stock company, was in a recognition of the fact that there may be a season, at the time of harvest, there may be excess output, and farmers' produce can go waste. Therefore, let us set up buffer stock company to mop up the excess and then either release it into the market during the lean season or use it for the school feeding. But the unfortunate thing is that over the years, buffer stock had become a shadow of itself. It could not function because government never released sufficient resources for them to do the mop-up. What we are hearing now is that over 100 million Ghana cedis has been given to the buffer stock company to mop up. Whether that is enough to buy off the entire food excess that we'll be having during the harvest is another thing. But this is a good news. And I think that farmers must be insulated, that they should be allowed to produce, and that when there's excess, government should pick it up. Because if we look at agricultural production, it is not like any other product, whereby if it is cars and you produce cars and the cars are not sold, they can be stored for a number of years and yet they will be sold. But it is very difficult to store foodstuffs here because the foodstuffs are bulky and then they are also highly perishable. So if there is no immediate market for agricultural produce, then it goes to waste and the farmers suffer. So government's intervention is something that will rather motivate farmers, that even if you should just concentrate on production, and that when it gets to the harvest center and you don't find market for your produce, the buffer stock company is there to buy it up. So I would even propose to government that they should increase the funding to buffer stock company or stand by. Immediately, buffer stock company needs additional funding to be able to mop up what is in the market. Then government should readily give them that support.
Mr. Kariwe, thank you so much for your time. Always a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you.
And you heard the voice of Edward Kariwe, who is the director at the Policy and Advocacy Legal and Entrepreneurship Support Hub, Less Hub. And you are consumers of what our farmers produce. What do you make of this development, and how else can we improve farming in the country and by extension make it more incentivizing or attractive to younger people like you and I? We would be happy to hear your thoughts on our Facebook page where we are streaming this bulletin, so do let your comments flow in. Still listening to 3FM 92.7, this is Hot Edition. We're going to Education Matters now.
Yes, Martin, this is one that has been on the lips of a lot of Ghanaians because the Ghana Education Service has removed Charles Asiedu, who is assistant headmaster in charge of academics at KNUST Senior High School, from office. This follows a viral video circulating on social media, allegedly showing him in a compromising situation with a female student. In a statement signed by head of public relations, Daniel Fenyi, the GES said Mr. Edu has been barred from going to the school while investigations are ongoing. Management stressed that due process will be followed and that any disciplinary action will be in line with Any disciplinary action taken will be in line with the code of conduct of the service. The GES assured parents, students, and the general public that it still remains committed to safeguarding the integrity of the teaching profession and protecting the welfare of its students. It further condemned any act that compromises safety, dignity, and well-being of learners in the country's school.
Right, thanks for that. And let's now go straight to the phone lines. We've been joined by Bright Appiah, who is the Executive Director, Child's Rights International. Mr. Appiah, good evening. Thank you for joining us on 3FM.
Good evening, Martin.
A few people have, posited that had it not been that it was captured on video, many wouldn't have heard about it and this action wouldn't have been taken. And on the back of that, they make the case that it's been happening in some places, but for lack of evidence, the students are probably unable to even speak to their parents or guardians about it. How concerning is this issue as someone who's been following children's development across the country?
Well, it's just another issue that we are talking about, because this is not the first time that we had a report of that nature. And just as you also said, the reason why we're talking about it is because we have evidence to support it. But the general thing that is happening to children in schools is something that should be a worry to the service and also to the nation in terms of how we want to raise our children and those that we have given the authority to raise our children, or especially giving them education. So those are the fundamental things that, for me, we should worry about, because there are instances that we have received a number of cases relating to that, and because most of them do not have evidence to support it, it's very difficult for us to pursue cases of that nature. But these are things that children go to on a daily basis in our educational system.
Have we, over time, you indicate clearly that this is not the first time things like this have come public, but do you think that at least even in the last decade or over time, we've been able to build the right support systems or social support systems in place, even in the schools or, in public areas, to address some of these concerns, especially for the victims?
Well, in terms of our social protection mechanisms in our schools, is not really effective, in the sense that we have not really integrated the child protection bit of it into our school system. For authorities who are training our children to understand that they owe them that duty of care, and that standard must also be maintained in terms of their professional work. And then also what children can also do within their school environment, especially where they are confronted with taking such decisions as to whether they want to be in a certain position with the authorities and all that. So clearly, we've made the environment loose, and people think that they can just do anything at all against children and go scot-free. And in such instance, when you want to measure it against the standard of care, irrespective of the approval that the child gives in that process, you can't count it as a form of you based on that to do whatever you want to do. So that standard practice where we need to let people understand that once they've given children for you and they're under your care, you need to observe certain professionalism to be able to give them the kind of training that you have to give them. But because we have not really integrated that in our school system, and we have focused purely on the academics of our children, we tend to neglect their social welfare, and that is what is causing some of these things. And some of them don't even appreciate what they are doing, so it makes it a bit difficult for them to even know that what the act that the authorities are are doing is even amount to any offense at all. So those are the difficulties that we have when it comes to the social integration of policies.
My last two questions. One would be, have these sanctions been punitive enough over time? Anytime it comes public, there is the public condemnation, there are calls for actions to be taken. But do you think that they've been punitive enough to reduce the regularity of how it's been happening?
When you go to most of the protocols, especially when it comes to administration of schools, you don't see any punitive measure, even in the code of conduct and all that. And even within our legal framework, where you expect that there will be some kind of express in terms of the decision that people who manage children, when they take, what are the consequences that they have to face. And we don't have much precedence on it in terms of the decision of the court or any other organization that has said that, okay, when you do this, this is what will happen to you, for it to serve as a benchmark for people to comply. So it's not something that we think about, because the best that can happen to this person is to be transferred or to be indicted, or to do, maybe they will just transfer you somewhere to go and continue your activity. And that has been the practice of Ghana Education Service. But we expect that within their own protocols and within the general protocol of school management, some of these things will be expressly stated, so that when offenses are committed, certain actions can be taken. And looking at it, I don't think that it will go far, in my opinion. And I'm also basing my decision on the fact that we don't have any provision that deal with this in its specific terms for us to say that because he has done this, this is the kind of punishment I want to give to the person. So I'm not seeing something that will go far. But what we need to do is that as a country, we need to look back. And being the first country to also ratify the convention, we owe our children a duty to make certain legislations that will protect them, especially within our school system. And this comes back to the issue of the safe school policies that we need to introduce so that our children will be safe.
And my last one, thanks for indulging me. My last one would be, and again, let me just play the devil's advocate here. If in this particular instance, if you watch the video, I don't know whether you've seen it. If you watch, there seemed to be some kind of a consent sort of from the child in question. When it comes to situations like that, where we have heard stories of, especially in remote places, where, for instance, it is that teacher that is taking care of the child and the family, where the family would rather be in support of the teacher, and if it is not that the child actually reported that she was forced to participate in this act, how do we manage it when we have such a situation where there seems to have been consent?
It's appropriate forum that can determine whether the consent obtained by the man is an informed consent or it's a test of time. So these are things that sometimes we just have to test it for us to know the validity or whether it will hold water in terms of what we want to do with our policies and programs and all that. So as it is now, the consent is an issue that we need to look at. Then again, you're also looking at the standard of care that as a professional person who is training our children and giving children education, there's an outcome that the state expects. When you look at our education strategic plan, there's outcome of training our children. So would this kind of behavior also contribute to the outcome of those indicators that we have in our education strategic plan and all that? But if it's a behavior that will not morally build a child, that will have effect on the child's academic work, then it's something that we need to show concern about. So it's not as it is now. What we need to discuss in relation to the child is the moral standard that we have to measure. But as to whether the child has given consent or not, for me, it is immaterial. But again, we cannot also come to the conclusion that it cannot be on the other side, especially where the child is above a certain age. So there's a lot of things that we have to look at and bring some kind of certainty in terms of how we want to raise our children within the schools and how even the children themselves need to behave within the educational system. Once we're able to establish that, then we set up the benchmark. And whoever goes beyond the benchmark, then we hold the person responsible.
Thank you so much, Mr. Appiah, for your time.
Thank you too.
Yeah, you had the Executive Director, Charles Wright International, Bright Appiah there, and has been espousing his thoughts on the story of a headmaster, assistant headmaster, I should say, who has been sacked, more or less, by the Ghana Education Service or removed from post. I'm talking about Charles Akwesi Edu, who is the assistant headmaster in charge of academics at the KNUST Senior High School. And it was because he was seen in a viral video fondling the breast of a student, and this issue has received a huge backlash and public condemnation, and that is what has led to his removal from office as head of assistant head of the school. And you, as a parent, a guardian, or someone who's got a sister or a sibling in school, what do you make of this particular issue? Do you think that we have punished people who are falling foul to this particular law enough to deter others from participating? Our comment section is flowing with your comments, and we'll be reading a number of them shortly. In the meantime, we have some more stories.
Yes, the Minister of Communications, Digital Technology and Innovation, Samuel Nati George, has announced new DSTV packages to be enjoyed by subscribers effective October 1, 2025. The new packages comes after a recent meeting on reduction of subscription prices with operators of DSTV Multi-Choice Ghana. At a press briefing in Accra, Sam George said Multi-Choice Africa has committed to implement an unprecedented increased value offer only in Ghana, which will result in Ghanaian DSTV subscribers getting more services for less. The package review followed earlier threats by the minister to withdraw the broadcasting permit for DSTV over failure to slash prices for Ghanaian customers. Take a listen to him.
Subscribers will get between 33% to 50% more value. The new arrangement, effective from 1st October 2025, are as follows. For those who are on the Paddy Bouquet subscription, you currently pay 59 Ghana cedis. When you pay 59 Ghana cedis, you get upgraded automatically to Access, which is valued at 99 Ghana cedis, and you get 35 more channels. This represents a 40% savings if you were to pay for the Access yourself. Second bouquet, Access, currently going at 99 Ghana cedi. If you retain your Access bouquet at 99 Ghana cedi, Multi-Choice will bump you up to the family bouquet, which is currently priced at 190 Ghana cedis. You get 19 more channels, which means that if you were to stay on Access and get bumped up, for the value you get, you make a savings of 48%. If you're on the family package, which is currently valued at 190 Ghana cedis, DSTV will automatically bump you up to Compact, which ordinarily goes for 380 Ghana cedis. You get 22 more channels and actually get access to live football matches. So anybody on the family package, which previously didn't get live football matches, would automatically get live football matches. The value savings on this, 50%. Compact, currently going at 380 Ghana cedis, gets bumped up automatically to Compact Plus, which is priced at 570 Ghana cedis. You get 12 more channels in addition, and the value savings, 33%. Compact Plus, valued at 570 Ghana cedis. You pay that, you're automatically bumped up to Premium, which goes at the price of 865 cedis. You get 18 more channels and a value of 34%. For those who remain on their Premium bouquet, which is priced at 865 Ghana cedis, you will still get all the content on the Premium flagship, the flagship Premium bouquet, but you also get an automatic entry into the competition for the chance to win a fully paid trip to watch selected English Premiership games. But this is, as well as you know, subject to terms and conditions. There is no restriction on a subscriber's choice of a bouquet. The offer is available to both existing and new customers from 1st of October 2025.
That was the Minister of Communications, Digital Technology and Innovation, Samuel Nate George, where he was announcing new DSTV packages to be enjoyed by subscribers on October 1st, 2025. We'll be back after this. Stay with us.
Ghana, it's a new year and Bills Microcredit is here to support your dreams. If you're not working but want to start a business, don't let money stop you. With just your Ghana card, you can get a loan to turn your ideas into reality. Already running a business? Need more capital? Or are you a salary worker looking for extra funds? Bills offers fast and easy loans with no collateral, no deposit, and no SUSI savings required. Wherever you are, whatever you need, Bills makes it happen. Call Bills Microcredit today. Call 0596 920 833 or 0302 200 390 and get started. Bills is licensed and regulated by the Bank of Ghana. Bills, financing your needs. Terms and conditions apply.
Hello, good evening, and welcome to the business segment here on Hot Edition. Here, coming up tonight, World Bank warns that Ghana's job crisis threatens socio-economic stability, according to the Bretton Woods Institution's 2025 policy notes. I am Christabel, Success Treve. Stay with us. And now the details. The World Bank has issued a stark warning to Ghana, stating that the nation's burgeoning job crisis poses a severe risk of worsening its existing socio-economic challenges unless immediate pragmatic steps are taken to create and expand productive job opportunities. In its 2025 policy notes, the Bretton Woods Institution highlighted the immense scale of the challenge. Approximately 500,000 youth enter the labor market annually, with nearly 7 million new job seekers expected to join the workforce by 2030.
The report acknowledges the attractiveness of public sector jobs due to wage premiums, but stresses that this sector can only absorb a small fraction of the growing labor force. The bank argues that the country's current trajectory, marked by a capital-intensive industrialization module and limited job creation in high-productivity sectors, has significantly weakened the growth elasticity of poverty. This weakness is evident in the stagnation of poverty reduction since 2012. Between 2012 and 2016, national poverty saw only a marginal drop from 24.2% to 23.4%, indicating that economic growth has ceased to be pro-poor. The data presented by the World Bank paint a worrying picture of inequality and stagnation among the poorest segments of society. Consumption for the bottom 40% of the population has stagnated. The bottom 10% of the population has experienced a 5% decline in consumption. The bank suggests that the limited availability of high productivity jobs has curtailed incentiveness for households to invest meaningfully in education and skills development. The World Bank urgently stressed that government must pivot its focus to medium-term strategies that can deliver early wins to build public consensus and support for necessary economic reforms.
That was a report on the World Bank warning the Ghana's job crisis threatens socioeconomic stability, and that's according to Bretton Woods Institution's 2025 policy notes. Just before we go, the Customs Division of the Ghana Revenue Authority, GRA, has intensified its operations to combat the smuggling of beverages, particularly Malta Guinness, which is reportedly evading excise tax and being sold without mandatory tax stamps. This decisive action comes amid a dramatic decline in excise duty revenue from a high of 52 million cedis in May to just 8.9 million cedis in August from the popular malt drink. That'll be all for the business segment here on Hot Edition. I am Christabel Success Treve. Up next is sports with Oreku Ampofo.
Hello, good evening, and welcome to the sports segment here on Hot Edition on TFM 92.7. My name is Oreku Ampofo. Let's start off from the ministry, where the Sports and Recreation Minister Kofi Adams has lauded the Ghana Football Association for reducing the budget ahead of the Black Stars 2026 World Cup qualifying games against Comoros and Central African Republic.
The FE for reaching that consensus with us and presenting estimates that falls within the range of agreement that we had in our February 2025 meeting. So meaning that understanding is there. For those who misspoke when we did what we did, the FA itself have responded very positively to the implementation of the president's directives. And the estimates they submitted, truly speaking, no matter how sharp your knife is, it's difficult to find any meat to cut.
And so that was the Minister for Sports and Recreation speaking there, Kofi Adams, on the budget submitted. Remember that the Black Stars face Central African Republic in Morocco on October 8th, and then face Comoros here in Accra, Ghana, 4 days later, needing 4 more points from these 2 games to assure themselves qualification for the next World Cup. Now, before we go, speaking of the World Cup, South Africa have been stripped of 3 points in their World Cup qualifying campaign for fielding an ineligible player, denting their hopes of reaching next year's finals. FIFA said on Monday that its disciplinary committee found that South Africa were guilty of playing midfielder Teboho Mokoena in a 2-0 home win over Lesotho in March, when he should have sat out the qualifier after 2 cautions in previous Group C games. So Lesotho have been awarded a 3-0 victory, with South Africa being stripped of the points and fined 10,000 Swiss francs, which translates to about $12,536,000, while Mokoena has been given a warning. Now, in terms of repercussions, this is how things look like in Group C. Benin now topped the group on goal difference level on points, with South Africa on 14 with 2 games left. Nigeria, who are the group favorites, are 3 points behind, along with Rwanda. Only the group winners, remember, automatically qualified directly to the World Cup, while potentially runners-up could go through the playoff. You can get more sports updates on our social media handles at 3SportsGH. My name is Oreku Ampofo.
Thank you very much, Oreku Ampofo. That'll be it for Hot Edition here on 3FM 92.7. I did this with Martin Asiedu-Dartey. I am Christabel Success Treve. Up next is the 3FM Drive team with Trickmatic and DJ Faculty. Don't go away.